Stupidity is more the rule than the exception. For some reason, people like to inflate dictators after they're gone once the scale of their evil is known. It makes beating him seem more heroic, and dwelling on their stupidity seems like an insult to those who died because of him.
MAGA divided as Trump turns on Putin. Oh.
As an American, being loyal to a foreign, uncharismatic dictator is somehow even more pathetic than being loyal to Trump.
How can they be divided on this? Guess it's just the dictatorship aspect of it?
Better Russian than Democrat, unironic shirt slogans that they wear.
It's so wild to me. I was in high school in a small town during the Reagan years, and I am 100% sure the better dead than red kids are Putin fans now.
I like how better dead than red works as an anti-Republican t-shirt these days too, whether it be the MAGA hats or the red on election maps.
You have to remember there's a good chunk of MAGA people who don't really care about understanding politics, let alone international politics. It's sports TV to them. So being a leader to them is being that guy talking down to world leaders strapped with a gun inside their coat while they deliver a simple solution to a complex problem by using toughness on their perceived enemies at any cost. Dominic Toretto style. Think that scene in Armageddon where Bruce Willis lays into the egghead scientists for not knowing oil drilling as he puts them in their place to save the world.
Thanks. I was just wondering why someone who would rather be dead than a Republican would now be a MAGA voter, until I realized red could also mean Soviet communism.
Republicans weren't officially red, nor Democrats blue, until 2000.
As far as they're concerned, it isn't contradictory because the Soviet Union collapsed and got replaced by a conservative police state run by wealthy oligarchs with deep ties to a branch of the Christian church. Exactly the kind of thing they want to turn America into.
Because they're traitors, and their loyalties are being split. Because politics is all sports teams and slogans to them, they don't actually care about policies. I imagine there's at least two parts to it. One, they expect Trump to jump back on Putin's dick, so they are hesitant to update their talking points too early. Two, they know Russia played at least some role in Republicans coming to power, and they're afraid to lose that. Obviously, they can't admit either of these points. It's because they don't have the ability to think critically. The Trumposphere of media has given endless justification for years, long before the war, for why Putin isn't actually that bad, and it's actually Ukraine who is the corrupt faces. So when Dear Leader says something that contradicts that, it causes a bit of a flurry as everyone works out how to make sense of this in a way that proves they were right the entire time. They'll all be lockstep on the same message within a week. Happens every time.
I think that scene in Armageddon where Bruce Willis lays into the egghead scientists for not knowing oil drilling as he puts them in their place to save the world. This is an incredibly important point. Writer Philip K. Dick repeatedly made this prescient point in the 1970s when he was interviewed. PKD used the point about eggheads to warn Americans that the right wing had been taken over by authoritarians and was spouting Nazi-like rhetoric. Schoppe Link claimed in a 1977 interview that while researching his Nazi-themed novel, Link, he discovered that an equivalent term, Eierkopf, had been used by the Link because when they attacked people who were defenseless, Link.
You hit the nail on the head. It's all about winning to them at any cost. This idea started from Newt's Link and gave Republicans Link that led to the current political polarization of the USA.
Trump's whole stand-up comedy routine is entirely for them. Don't forget white. They think of Russia as a white utopia. And straight, Fox, and the right ate up Putin's non-ban on homosexuals in the lead-up to the Sochi Olympics. Much of what transpired in the lead-up to the election and since then is straight out of that playbook.
Some kids watched Family Ties and thought Alex P. Keaton was the cool guy instead of Nick.
Thanks. Link. My favorite was Link. Do any of those contrasting words sound familiar?
Well, I just want to say that I don't recognize the Republican Party at all. Sure, my parents are still Republicans, but they're old and immalleable. But the people in my social circles who are MAGA, they voted for Obama and Kerry. They were pro-Clinton even though they were too young to vote for him. And now they're die-hard Cheeto fans. I can't even begin to make it make sense. I distinctly remember the all-blue map with one red state when Reagan won his second term against Mondale. I have always wondered when that defined color assignment seemed to happen. The networks used to change up the red-blue mappings, pretty much until Link with Russert.
This is no different than when Trump announced that he wanted to take guns away now, due process later, in his first term. MAGA won't have to change their beliefs. Trump will flip back to his original position before they even have time to process that their idol isn't who he says he is. It is about revenge. People who feel left out and want to give someone the finger. They are willing to suffer themselves just to make the other side suffer more. Sprinkle the fact that people who feel the world is changing too fast want someone to tell them he can fix it all, with dumb, simplistic solutions to complex problems.
Most of them are paid agents, or as we refer to them, Trump's cabinet.
Daddy, what am I supposed to believe?
The secret sauce is that they were never anti-Russian, just anti-communist. If you've heard the way they talk about Democrats since the Reagan era, it's not hard to see how we got here. They actually quite like the whole Russian national narrative of oppression and overwhelming aggression, and conversely hate anyone to the left of 19th century Prussia so much that they would rather destroy the space they have to share with them than learn to live with them.
You'd prefer your dictators more charismatic? I do. I genuinely thought all of this would be done with a modicum of intelligence, by someone likable. I cannot get over how fucking stupid it all is. And it's being carried out by some of the most disgusting people ever assembled. It's not the evil that gets me. I expect that. It's the goddamn stupidity of it all. Stupidity is more the rule than the exception. For some reason, people like to inflate dictators after they're gone once the scale of their evil is known. It makes beating him seem more heroic, and dwelling on their stupidity seems like an insult to those who died because of him. The truth is, people at the time knew perfectly well that Hitler and Mussolini were comically stupid. They did not read, had next to no understanding of how to do their jobs, and every aspect of their government was an inept mess. Decades from now, people will focus on the racism and psychopathy of Trump and his inner circle, their hatred for foreigners and liberals, and the levels of cruelty they were willing to stoop to in order to eliminate them. People will prefer not to bring up how absurdly stupid they all are.
All good points. The worrying part is what happens in between now and the decades from now. Part you're referring to. Fascist regimes tend to burn themselves out, but not until untold misery has been visited upon their people and the world. There's probably a lot of stuff that still needs to go wrong before America wakes up out of the MAGA intellectual coma and liberates itself. I just hope the rest of us survive whatever shit they start while sorting themselves out.
Sorry, but you're wrong about Mussolini. He was articulate and well-read. He was an impressive man to many educated Italians, until he boxed himself into an alliance with Hitler. I read The Pope and Mussolini and learned more about Mussolini than I ever knew before. It was a real eye-opener on the politics of the 1930s. Hitler was very stupid.
In Mussolini's case, he was clearly much more literate and articulate in his early life, while running socialist newspapers and magazines. But his slide toward right-wing politics coincided with a noticed mental decline that even those around him noticed. Throughout his rule, both the people and his underlings would mention how he seemed less able to pay attention, understand fine details, or to even care about anything other than his public perception and banging random side chicks.
Mussolini made it illegal to report the trains being late. That's how he solved the problem. Mussolini was indeed one of the smartest people to be executed by subjects, and his corpse hung dead from his feet next to his mistress. After, of course, his buddy Hitler had to bust him out of prison after he was arrested by the king. Just need to clarify that I am not defending Mussolini against anything other than saying he did not read. He was a reader. A well-read fascist is still wrong. He was a manipulative liar, partly because his ability to cite and quote books made people think he knew how to run Italy.
There are numerous studies that correlate a mental decline or defect with a shift towards conservative or far-right, aka fascist, policies and beliefs. Here's one study that correlates liberal thought with the increased volume of gray matter in young adults. Link?
Hitler wrote a book, a sloppy, trashy book, but a book nonetheless. That makes him smarter than Trump by default, so he couldn't have been that stupid. Just pointing out.
That's kind of a fair point, but having read Hitler's book, I would flunk a high schooler for turning it in. Ignoring the obvious bigotry and yearning for violence and all, It's absolutely terribly written, and you can tell right away that he did not read much himself. It contradicts itself endlessly, sometimes within one page, and every biographical anecdote feels like overhearing a 10-year-old bragging lies to other 10-year-olds. You think he could get meth in German jail in the 20s? I am not saying the man was a genius, but he was J.D. Vance dumb, not mouth-breathing Trump stupid. The man painted, knew classical music, going as far as having opinions of the acoustics of different concert halls. He was obsessed with his architectural project for Berlin, and indeed, he wrote a bad fascist racist ranting book by himself while seething in jail. Trump's government makes TLDR documents with pictures for him because he's functionally illiterate? Honestly, hearing him speak for more than 20 seconds makes me think the whole of the US is gaslighting me into thinking he's 30 IQ points above what he is, even when they called him a moron. He's stupider than any politician I've ever heard in any capacity outside of the US, maybe tied in with Marjo.
No, he did not write a book. He sat in a room, method up to the teeth, and yapped all day and night while his dedicated writer tried his best to transcribe all that nonsense into something that could be printed and then put together into something that vaguely resembles a book.
I'm not bigging Hitler up, just to be clear. I'm saying that Trump is worse than Hitler by every single intellectual and cultural measure. Trump couldn't write a single page of a publishable book if his life depended on it.
I never said it was anything but utter trash, just that it was more than Trump could ever accomplish. Besides having your facts wrong, he only wrote the loosely connected first part of his book in jail, which, by the way, was basically a very luxurious apartment with a locked door himself. But he didn't write the second and way bigger part of the book, but, as I said, went on a cracked-out vacation for a year with his dedicated writer. Also, you have a very naive interpretation of intelligence. Listening to classical music when there was basically nothing else in any upper class painting, when getting rejected by the University of Arts because his pictures and in-person meeting already reflected his psychopathic traits and made him actually a very bad painter at what he was trying to paint, which absolutely was beyond his capabilities, and his admiration for architecture and a whole ideology that solely built upon a completely false interpretation of displayed strength has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence, and again has even less to do with your very own topic, that the guy did not write his own book.